Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Anna Marie. Thank you so much for coming back and visiting with me. Today I have a couple of things to talk to you guys about. First, I wanted to give you an update on Polarthon. I am a little bit behind, but I have the weekend to catch up and I have two very small books to read, so I think I'm going to be okay with that. And also, I am doing the Booktube Newbie tag. I've seen this go around and I feel like it's a rite of passage for a booktuber, so you're going to get to know me just a little bit better with this tag. And then finally, I have a mini haul. Why did I say mini 3 times? I don't know. A mini haul because I got stuck at a Books A Million in a storm the other night, so I got some books. And also today's tea is hot because it is very cold outside. It might snow and I really hope it does. And this is my Talk Darcy to Me mug, which I love very much. So let's get into it. So for Polarthon, I am almost done with my first 2 books. I am very close to being done with Hearts of Ice, and this has been an interesting read. It is very young middle grade. The writing is very cliche. The dialogue is predictable and kind of corny, which I mean, you would expect from a younger middle grade novel, but some parts of it are just so cringy that I want to put it down. But I mean, it's a cute book. Next is a very different book that I have very different feelings about, which is Anya and the Dragon. I am loving this. I have never seen it on Booktube before, but it is so good. Despite the fact that this is a middle grade, the writing and the dialogue is not cliche or corny at all. It feels very realistic. It's funny and sweet, and the main character Anya's got a little bit spunky personality, and she is just trying to take care of her family by doing something that is both dangerous and maybe something she shouldn't be doing. Also, something really interesting about this is while they are in Russia and they are surrounded by this folklore and mythology, they are Jewish. They're a Jewish family. So we get a lot of that culture in there as well. So they spend a lot of time going into the traditions and the religion, and I find it really interesting that there's both that traditional magic and the religion put together in this family. It's really interesting. Also, for some reason, this book spends a lot of time describing the way that they make food during this time. And this is kind of a medieval Russian setting. And like whenever they're making bread or making any kind of food, they describe it so extensively, and it's interesting to me. Like usually I would find myself bored with descriptive passages like this, but for some reason with this it just adds to the culture and makes me more interested in the time period and the setting. And also it's something that really connects Anya to her grandmother because they cook together. So it's just a really sweet part of the story that I've really come to like. So I suppose we should get into the Booktube Newbie tag. If I'm looking down, it's because I've got the question down here in front of me. So let's get into it. Number 1 is, why did I start this channel? I feel like a lot of booktubers have the same answer for this question. I don't have very many people in my life who are as obsessed with books as I am, and I try to like include my family and my friends into my obsession. So when I'm reading a book, I'll start talking to them about it and telling them how much I love the characters or how much I'm hating the story or something. And I can see when I'm talking to them, I can see their eyes like drooping because they're so bored. They try. So I've been watching Booktube for about a year, a little over a year now, and before then I did not realize that there were people like me who got so excited and passionate about reading and about the stories. And so I just didn't realize that people out there, you know, wanted to discuss these things. And then I found Booktube and it was like, there's a place for me to do this, and other people understand and they want to talk about these things. So I just felt like there was a place for me here, and I wanted to talk about the books that I love with you guys. Just have a whole new community where I can just share this bookish part of myself. Number 2 says, what are some of the fun and unique things that I can share with Booktube? I don't know about fun and unique, but I am an English teacher. I'm a high school English teacher. So I feel like that part of myself, I can kind of share that with you guys as far as like what we're reading and what my kids are interested in. Right now we're getting ready to do a buddy read, usually a lot of teachers just choose the books that they want their kids to read. And I totally understand that there is a canon and classics are classic for a reason. And I love teaching Shakespeare and I love teaching To Kill a Mockingbird. But I also know that some of the best books I read in high school were ones that I found in the library and things that none of my teachers were teaching at the time. I feel like maybe I can keep up to date with what, my students are interested in and maybe bring that to my channel in some way. And number 3, what are you most excited for? I feel like I answered this in number 1, but just making connections with people who also share my obsessive bookish tendencies. Number 4 is, why do you love reading? Wow, this is a hard question. I've never had to kind of put this into words before, so it's a difficult one. Well, one reason, and I think everybody has a time in their life when this is the case, it can be kind of an escape. And I don't think it's wise to let it be an escape forever. But if you need a safe place to go or a place that that you can be distracted for a while, reading is never going to let you down. Like, people may let you down every once in a while, but you can always rely on a good book. And I've gone through times in my life where I needed it and it was always there for me. Also, I don't get to travel much. As much as I want to go places and see things, I don't really get the chance. And I hope to travel a bunch someday. But for right now, I travel through my books. I get to see things and go places that I might never get to see and also that don't exist. I have experiences through reading that I would never have otherwise. Number 5 is, what are some series that got you into reading? I will say the majority of the time I am reading a series. I don't read a lot of standalones and I want that to change. I want to start reading some standalones, but I've always loved series. A series that got me into reading when I was a kid. I remember the Red Rock Mystery series, and I'll try to put up a picture of that right here. I don't know how popular it is. It's a Christian mystery series for middle grade. There were 14, 15 books, I think, and it was just a set of fraternal twins. They had some dramatic situations and it was mystery and very corny. Thinking back on it, I loved it. But if I tried to read it now, I feel like I would laugh at myself. Another series that I really, really loved, and I binge read this entire series, was the Left Behind series for young adults. There is an adult version of the Left Behind series, and I don't know how many there are in that one, but in the young adult series, there are 40 books. They're very small and like you can read one a day. I used to take 2 of these books to school a day because I would finish one and then I would want to start the next one the same day. And I was raised kind of in a conservative household, so I didn't get started on Harry Potter as young as I wanted to. So I had these Christian fiction series that I really got into and they were really entertaining. Another one that I read over and over was the Maximum Ride series. So I read that series over and over. I actually think I stopped after Fang. I don't know if that's the last one. I was burnt out on the series. Like, I just felt like the world should be over. And then of course I had the series when I was a teenager that everybody loved. I was a Twilight fan for a long time until I saw the second movie. Don't get me started on that. But I also was interested in Vampire Academy for a while. Every girl had a vampire thing. I don't know why. This next one, it's so crazy how I came upon this. So there is a local bookstore where I live, and it's a used bookstore, and you can buy and sell your books there. And I was just looking around the middle grade section, and I came across this series, and I just had this like flashback to my childhood. And I was like, I read this, and I loved this. So the series is called The Land of Elion or Elion series. Let me know if you guys have read this or have seen this before, because like I remember reading these books. I don't remember exactly what they're about. I do remember it's got magic, and like, we're trying to fight this evil presence. I'm basically describing every fantasy that ever existed, and I want to go back and read them later on. And the one standalone that I read so much is Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. This was one that my mom actually picked up and she read, and then she recommended that I read. It's a Christian historical fiction set in the 1800s, the California Gold Rush era, and it is based off the book of Job in the Bible. Hi guys. So the editing version of myself realized that I said Job, but I meant Hosea. It's based off the book of Hosea. And I've read this so many times. My copy is like falling apart. I hate saying this on Booktube because I know I'm going to get some feedback about this, but I used to dog ear my pages. Honestly, I don't see a problem with it if that's what you prefer, but I don't do it anymore, but I did it with this. And the funny thing is every single page has a dog ear mark. Like all of them have this little thing. Even if you're not into historical fiction or Christian fiction, this is something that I recommend to everyone I come in contact with that likes to read, even men. Like this is just a story that's so uplifting. And even without the religious aspect, it just reminds you that you have a purpose, and it's just a really powerful read. So I went through a phase in college where I read only classics for a while, and I love classics, but I feel like I missed out on so many other great books. So after college, around the end of college, I picked up Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I've heard so many booktubers talk about this series. I have a lot of feelings about this series. When I read through it the first time, I was addicted. I loved it. Everything was perfect. There was nothing wrong. Now that I've read a lot more fantasy and I look back on it, I see the flaws. And if I tried to reread this series, I feel like I would ruin it with my critical eye. But I look back on it with fond memories, and it's what got me into fantasy, so I appreciate it for what it is. Number 6, what questions would you ask booktubers? I feel like I would ask them how they have the time to read as much as they do. And honestly, I feel like the answer would vary because people have different schedules and different jobs. And I work a full-time job, so I don't read as much as I would like to, but I'm still able to read more than the average person. So it just depends. And then I also would like to ask them how they get over the awkward stage of staring into a camera and talking, because I feel like I'm in that stage, but I see so many booktubers who are just so comfortable staring at a screen and talking about books. I'll get there one day. Number 7 is, what are some challenges you think you might have to overcome with your booktube channel? The only thing I see is time management. I want to post so much and I want to spend so much time on this because it's new and it's fun and I'm passionate about it. So I'd love to be posting like 3 to 4 videos a week, but because of my job, that's just not realistic. So I feel like that could become something that I regret, is not posting more videos. But it is what it is. I will do what I can. Number 8, when did I start reading? Goodness, my grandmother used to read to me when I was very young. I had every single Disney book. I just remember a certain time when I started reading with her. I remember it was before I went to kindergarten, so right around that time. Number 9 is, where do I read? I can be particular about where I read if I have the chance to be. If I don't have the chance to be particular, I will read anywhere and everywhere and wherever I can. But if I do have the chance to be particular about where I read, I love sitting outside, like in a chair or on the porch in a swing when the weather is really nice and just being outside and reading. And then I also have a reading chair in my library. That is the perfect reading chair, so I really like to read there as well. And number 10 is, what kinds of books do you read? I mean, obviously the majority of my books back here are fantasy. I love the creative magic systems and the ability to create a different world. I just don't find it as entertaining to read about the everyday. I just love experiencing a completely new world with places that I don't have here or abilities that we don't have here. So fantasy is my number 1 go-to genre. But lately I've started to get interested in thriller/horror, especially with my kids. We're doing the buddy read and a lot of them have picked really interesting thriller novels. And I also like classics. I read a lot of classics in college and I still have them and love them very much. So really quick, I wanted to show you guys some of the books that I picked up when I was stuck in Books A Million in a storm. So I called my mom afterwards to tell her about the storm. She knows that I go in bookstores more than I should because I have an addiction. I was telling her about the storm and she's like, well, where were you? And I was like, I was safe. I was in a safe place. And she was like, you were in a bookstore, weren't you? And I had to say yes. I've been trying to look for good thriller recommendations. Of course, the thriller of all thrillers, Gone Girl. I've heard so many people recommend this. I haven't read it, I haven't seen the movie. I don't really know all that much about it other than the fact that there is a married couple and the wife goes missing. But I am excited to get into it because I know that it's so many people's favorite. Another thing that I've always found really interesting is psychological thrillers. I am really into like horror movies and thriller movies that have a psychological aspect. So I figured that I would be interested in the psychological aspect in a book. So I picked up An Anonymous Girl, and this sounds really interesting. This girl is trying to make money and she decides to participate in a psychological study, which I feel like is a really bad idea. And then she finds herself being controlled and manipulated more than she expected. So I don't know, I feel like the psychological aspect of this is just gonna be really interesting. Then I picked up Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell, and I know that Lisa Jewell is a popular thriller author, so I figured this one would be a really good one. And the premise just sounded really interesting. So I think the protagonist is a mom whose daughter went missing a couple years ago, and as she's trying to kind of get her life back together, she meets this strange man who also has a daughter, and the daughter looks identical to the one that this mom just lost. So it just sounded really interesting to me and I can't wait to pick it up. And finally, I picked up Into the Water by Paula Hawkins. I know that this is the author of The Girl on the Train, which is a very, very popular story. I watched the movie and I didn't love it, so I decided not to get that book. But Into the Water sounded interesting. It sounds also like a psychological thriller. And it is about, as far as I know, it is about a young girl. She almost drowned in this body of water, and apparently she has another family member who also almost drowned in this body of water, and there's some connection there. I'm not exactly sure, but it does sound really interesting, so I'm excited to pick it up. All right, guys, well, that's all I have for you today. I am looking forward to coming back and talking again soon. Let me know in the comments if you guys read any of the books that I did when I was younger. Let me know what series you read when you were younger that got you into reading. I'd love to know, and I hope to see you guys again soon.